The magic bullet. So, hey, if you're listening today and you're feeling like, man, I just need something new, I need some good juice, we've got the magic bullet for you.
Magic bullet.
Go join Real. That's it. We're done. No, I'm kidding.
Deuces.
I'm kidding.
Next week.
Welcome to the iBuyer experiment. We have some great stuff we're going to talk about today. Keith and Jason are gone, but we do have my cup, which is standing in. We have the guest,
Pinky, on today.
So I'm really excited about my Stanley Cup that is Zoodealio engraved, and
I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty freaking cool.
She's here with us today. She's
like
big.
it.
She a big cup.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this girl gets thirsty. It's supposed to be 100 degrees today in Phoenix.
Yep.
So the heat is on.
Yeah, you know, I gotta admit with these Stanley Cups, as I know we gave some out to our members and people that we did deals with, and man, there was so many people that were so stoked to get those. I was like, when you brought that up, I was like, what the freak is a Stanley Cup? But I'm like this 43-year-old dude apparently out of like all this cool trend stuff, and these cups are cool and trendy, but you're always good at that, keeping us fresh.
Well, you know. So what do we have today, Elliot?
Well, in our pre-show, discussions today, you had brought up that you had some things that you were going to keep live for the podcast. I'm like, dang, I'm going to be shocked and suspense live. What in the world's going on here? So, what we got?
You were talking about the growth of tech-enabled companies. So let's start with what was the stat on Real. The Real brokerage is
the Real brokerage
really growing.
Yeah, they hit a milestone, and they were featured on NASDAQ. That was actually what caught my eye around it. Is I think it was 5 days ago last week, they have broke the milestone of 10,000 agents, and so you have them, you have Place, you have EXP. You have, Place, first of all, is not a brokerage. They are, which I think that's one of the models I think that's very interesting. But then, of course, you have Compass and all of their tech enablement that we love to talk about on this. And then you have, again, KW, who always is claimed to be in the tech space. But I think that's, I'm going to call them more of an entrepreneurial brokerage versus a tech brokerage. Anyway,
okay.
I find it interesting right now where you have so many of these models that are growing actually like wildfire, right? So Real, which is the fastest growing brokerage in America per the data that I was looking at, they've reached that. And you also, before that, you had Compass that did grow a ton, whether they were buying their agents or not. But again, when they put $1 billion into technology, you have all of these things where they're touting like, hey, come be a part of us and join our technology because it will change your career, right? Where you just take this and you plug into our tech and magic bullet.
The magic bullet. So, hey, if you're listening today and you're feeling like, man, I just need something new, I need some good juice, we've got the magic bullet for you.
Magic bullet.
Go join Real. That's it. We're done. No, I'm kidding.
Deuces.
I'm kidding.
Next week.
So Real is growing rapidly. And okay, my thoughts on that growth. I think that there were a lot of people that wished they had gotten into EXP that didn't.
I said, let's uncover it for real.
Yeah, for real.
Pun intended.
So that's my take, is I think that it gained a lot of traction because it's, similar model. Well, I'm sure that they would disagree. We should have someone from Real and someone from EXP on, idea. And we should have them like duke it out.
Yeah, let's do a battle.
Because I don't think either of us know enough about either of them to really,
I don't.
It's not like we're pretending to be like experts in each of their business models. But just on a high level, that 30,000 foot perspective, what I think is that a lot of agents missed out on EXP, or so they think. And so they think, okay, I'll go be with Real because it's the same thing and I can get in early. Yeah.
And I mean, I know that they're both striving to provide the end-to-end digital experience for both buying and selling.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Knowing how fragmented technology is and how many different things it takes to make the wheel go round.
Especially from an end-to-end.
Yeah, I always find that to be an interesting feat that they're trying to accomplish.
Or even statement.
Like, if you're in technology, why would you even try and go end to end? Like, you can't do everything great. You just can't. There's too many little pieces. I don't know.
Well, and I mean, even think about people like, if we go back and way in time, right? Like think about, so one of the bigger CRMs out there right now, Boomtown. I remember when they very first started, they were just in the lead generation game, and they had to actually bolt on the CRM that they built out, which I think that came out, like 3 or 4 years after they were in existence. And the same thing with conversion, sync, or which was Tiger Leads originally, right? And then before they became Commissions Inc. When you look at the evolution of all these things, even just think about, for example, Boomtown that just sold for what, $310 million.
According to Tom Toole.
Yeah. Well, and I think
we don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
I have never seen that in writing. I just heard him say it.
Okay.
So
they were bought by a super. I'm totally drawing a blank. What's the name of that company?
Inside Real Estate.
Inside Real Estate. Yeah, they bought KB Core. Yep. So my point is, with all of this, is when you look at these monstrosity organizations, that their whole focus is on generating leads for the agent, cultivating and converting through CRM and capabilities. Could you imagine if they were going to try to put in actual like complete transaction management, title and escrow management?
Right. And so I said it's a tall order. So, but hey, more power to you. And if you can do it, and if you have the funds, the fundage, the coinage, what's your banking account looking like? Who are your connections? Because you're gonna need a lot of money. But so it's cool though. I think it's neat to see that agents are really embracing technology. And
it's a must. It's no longer a oh, this is a nice to have. I mean, this is 2023. Let's get real, right? Like, I mean, you can, we joke around about it all the time. You can do virtually anything online. You can absolutely buy a car from end to end online. You can do everything, right? You can do doctor's appointments online now, right? Like flat out end to end doctor's appointments online, telehealth, prescription ordered, have the prescriptions even delivered to your door, right? Like, so absolute end to end experience. I mean, obviously they haven't figured out surgery online yet, but maybe they will one day.
Well, yeah, we could say that they actually have, because now through technology, robots can do surgery virtually through technology. So they have figured that out. So let's talk about one of the things that I think when we talk about technology, we really have to talk about how can fraud play a part, because something happened here at my brokerage, and there was a fraud case. So a couple of our agents took a listing, and it was a vacant land listing, and the seller was out of state. And we got down to the closing table. The buyer had wired their $350,000 into the escrow account, and like, we're ready to close this deal. So seller says, hey, I have our own notary. You don't need to send us a mobile notary. We'll get these docs signed and back to you so we can close this deal. Well, thank God the escrow agent had just been part of like a managerial meeting where they were talking about how there are literally dozens of fraud cases surrounding vacant land happening in the Phoenix market right now. Like, so beware. Perfect timing. Wow. Thank God. But so we caught it. The escrow agent caught it and said, this sounds exactly like what they were talking about. Vacant land, out-of-state seller. And once she had heard that this was happening, it fit the bill. And so anyway, the interesting thing too to note is that the Attorney General's office, the FBI, all of the authorities that we've contacted have like really no desire to do anything about this.
What?
It's actually it's BS.
So total white collar crime.
Totally.
And they were attempting, I mean, just like in its most brass tacks thing here for the listeners, they were attempting to sell a piece of land that they had no right to sell and profit off of it.
Correct. And we're talking
hundreds of thousands of dollars.
So, hey, you guys want to start a little side scam?
Like,
we could make some quick cash.
I know. Let's put that into context. I mean, even though like they're not putting a gun in somebody's face, but the amount of money, like if you were to go in and rob a bank, your ass is not getting $300,000.
No.
Even if you were to get the cash there, I mean, maybe you're going to get 25 to 50 grand.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, exactly. So it was quite egregious. Thank goodness we caught it. The original seller, the landowner was contacted.
The actual landowner.
It was really angry. Very angry. And anyway.
Would have been for sure title insurance claim.
Exactly. So who would have paid it out? Probably title insurance,
absolutely.
Right? So, or maybe E&O.
I can't believe the title insurance company wouldn't like their attorneys. I mean, that's the whole point of title insurance and their, ivory towers of attorneys that they have, and why they're underwritten by Fidelity, Old Republic, or Fatco. They pretty much own every title company out there, and that's because the power that it takes to do that, because of these types of fraud things that go on. And it really shocks me that they wouldn't be throwing the book at this person.
It was
the attorneys.
It was pretty crazy. Very interesting. First time in all of my thousands and thousands of transactions that I've ever been a part of something like this, and really sad. And actually, now that we're talking, we're kind of talking about technology, and I think this plays an important. Technology could play an important role in preventing fraud.
It is pretty cool. What would that be?
Well, I mean, you said it best. Blockchain.
Yep. So, yeah, I mean, and again, blockchain, this would be a prime opportunity where it would actually solve that problem. Now, granted, they'd have to pretty much upload every title of, land parcels, multifamily, commercial, residential, right? So that would be quite a feat to get it all up on the blockchain. But there's no question. I think something like that will happen eventually. And the other thing that could do that will uproot the normal title insurance route, right? Like it would eliminate the need for running the chain of title when you buy a property, right? Because they could just literally see the open ledger, all people. But again, I think it would solve a lot of problems. But anytime you're solving a problem, there's obviously hurdles and new problems that arise from solving that problem.
And you're driving down the street and you see a dilapidated house that's just sitting there vacant for decades, and you're like, oh yeah, that guy he died and took his key with him. Yep. And couldn't transfer the title.
How do you solve that?
I think that's the biggest thing is how would you keep track of these ownership keys?
And honestly, I personally haven't thrown enough mental thought and bandwidth around that piece of it, right? I just, kind of grabbed onto it conceptually, how it would work. But
me too.
That'd be cool.
I know a girl, actually. Her name is Barkley, and I podcasted with her with Proppy. And so maybe I'll see if I can get Barkley on the iBuyer experiment to talk about and educate us in the Web3 all things. But definitely, the fraud is happening out there, guys. It's a crazy market. And, you might be feeling a little anxious about all of this change. I mean, for instance, there was a Reddit feed on a person that had posted, they've been trying to buy a house for 3 years and they can't.
That's wild to me.
And it is wild. And, if you're in that sweet spot price point, even though the market kind of, went down a little bit, transaction counts down, what we're still seeing is multiple offers. And I think it's so frustrating for buyers. They can't quite grapple with how am I bidding out other buyers on a property when the market's supposed to be slower?
Yeah. Well, and let's face it, right? Rates are up. You said the job reports obviously came out favorable, which is elevating the rate. And the one thing that continues to remain the same is inventory is staying atrociously low across America. So that and especially at lower price points.
Did you see Phoenix hit 13,000? That's it. That is it. 13,000. We're talking about Maricopa County, which is the fastest growing county in the U.S. And we only have 13,000 homes available.
Pretty wild.
It's crazy.
So, I actually want to uncover this a little bit more because this was in the Vegas market. You said from this Reddit article, right? Where this lady, she'd been shopping for 3 years. She could not find a home, and what was it that she said it was due to?
She just said she keeps getting outbid. Keeps getting outbid. And so, of course, there were tons of comments on it, and everybody's commenting hey, get a new agent and all this, giving her a lot of advice. And maybe she has. I didn't read too in depth in it. I just kind of skimmed it. But, if you're trying to buy a house for 3 years and you're unsuccessful, either the agent isn't communicating what's really going on, or the agent's not.
Yeah,
I mean there's a.
I've never even heard of that one. I'm not gonna lie.
If I had a ready, willing, and able buyer.
Well, and
we're going to get it done.
I hate to say it, but this is exactly where that Become a Cash Buyer program works, and it's still available. It's available in Vegas. You know, it's. I can think of a couple people that you could do it with. That would solve that particular problem. And if she's overbidding the listing, then that would offset even if the cost to turn their the offer to cash, if that was an issue, right? I mean, and I don't think it got into the type of loan if she's FHA, conventional, those types of things. So I mean, those could be some outlying issues, but at the same time, then you could even adjust the type of property. Maybe she's being super stingy in the house that she's looking for,
could
right?
Be.
There's a lot of little nuances in that. But what are some strategies, as you know, obviously our experience, that we would give to our listeners out there on how you could win a deal, especially if you're like, let's go toughest case scenario. You're a 350 or less FHA buyer, and they have a champagne taste on a beer budget. How would we solve that problem?
So, well, you just eliminated the biggest tool that you have at your disposal, and that's becoming a cash buyer.
Yep.
So you eliminated that when you said FHA.
Yep.
And I actually believe that we need policy change around this. And I've reached out to HUD, and they didn't reply to me.
I still love that you did that, right?
But I did reach out to HUD because I do believe that the 90-day flip rule is unfair. It's outdated. It's unfairly impacting first-time homebuyers who now can't take advantage of these programs that lenders are offering, such as the cash buyer program, where they can power up that buyer with cash so that they can compete against other cash buyers. So I did reach out to HUD several months ago, and obviously the rule has not been changed yet, guys.
They were so quick to create it. Why aren't they quick to undo it? At least I felt like they were quick to create it, right? Because it was created around all the flips of people were buying them where they were negotiating them low and then going in and putting $500 of rehab and selling them at a surplus because they got it in a foreclosure purchase or purchasing it through a short sale, right? That was meant to mitigate a lot of that type of quick buck. And those days have been gone for a long damn time now.
Yeah. So you took the cash buyer program off the table when you said FHA. But if you're an FHA buyer and you're in a really difficult price point, I think one of the best things that you can do is put together your sympathy package, right? You got to have a compelling story of why this home seller should choose you. And so, it's perfect if you're a first-time home buyer, because we all know what it is like to buy our first home. And let me tell you, it is a feeling, and that feeling is amazing. And we all, when we can give that gift of homeownership to somebody else, I think it makes us feel good. So I've worked with many sellers that have purposefully picked a buyer because they liked the buyer. They liked the buyer's backstory. So come up with your compelling story. Other things that you can do, make sure that you're not just pre-approved, but you're pre-qualified. Make sure that every time you write an offer, your lender is actually calling that listing agent and selling your financing, letting them know you're solid, letting them know you've been pre-approved, not just pre-qualified. Also, I would definitely reconsider your expectations. If you have that champagne taste on a beer budget, you need to think of this first home as not your forever home, it's your first home. And it's your gateway into the housing market. And you can always trade up, and you can always make repairs, renovations, etc. So I think that adjust your expectations, make sure that your partners you're working with are doing their job, make sure that your agent is taking you to that house first day, make sure you're putting your offer in straight away. I mean, there's a lot of tactics that you can take, but I think, the biggest one is adjusting your expectations if you're really, being very picky.
That's honestly where I would go with it. So taking my quick stab at this would be, number one, remembering that our job as an agent a lot of times is to not open the door. It's to represent that client's highest and best interest, and us educating them on, hey, this is what a scale looks like to jump into home ownership versus continuing to rent, right? Wasting that money, and you're putting your position to where you can trade up, as you stated. So number one, the other thing I would actually do, especially if you're in an ultra hot market, even though day one, I love that, getting in there, but if you can run the data in the parameters if they're searching and actually find houses that have been on the market for 60 days or more, you're more likely to get them to work with your offer and your terms in that too. So if that's available in your market, I would actually start there and say, hey, I would have a true consultation with my client and say, hey, these are the houses that are on here, and I want to let you know that they're available. But based on our 15 houses that we've looked at, the 5 offers that we've submitted that have all been rejected, Here's the reasons why. So what I would recommend we do is we start looking at these houses that have been on the market and they're more likely to work with us. And here's what I can tell you. Number one, we're going to probably be able to negotiate the terms a little bit better. And number two, we could probably negotiate repair cost as well as maybe some terms to actually get you down on that lower rate so that we can put in a plan to where we're going to own this house, have a cheaper payment for a 3 to 5 year window while strategizing to build equity, continuing to save money and find that next house. So that would be, again, where I would try to go with it and truly come from that place of representation. And that's probably, unfortunately, not the type of representation this homeowner is getting. So do yourself a favor. Look outside the box. Listen to Kayla. Listen to other pros. And put these practices in place and truly represent your client.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Interesting times. I mean, I can't imagine looking for a house for 3 years and not being able to buy one. Making offers, not getting them. That's depressing.
Yeah. So I have one other question. I think we're probably getting a little closer on time. So with this low inventory stuff, what's some strategies that we could do to ultimately give them places that they can go generate and drum up business, right? Like, so I was actually listening to something. I think this is really cool, and it was I forget where I heard it from, but they were like list to last, and the whole mantra was listing your house should actually be your last thing that you should do, right? It was a whole like more of an entrepreneur's mindset that you should walk into every single listing thinking about how you could buy that house. Number one. If that doesn't work out, doesn't fit your rental, the numbers don't work, et cetera, right? You can't do that. Well, then what would it look like to sell it off to an investor network? Then from there, it was other things such as wholesale, right? Like a lot of these different philosophies. But the last one is you should be looking at listing that property last. And the whole point of it is actually using modern technology, modern platforms to bring homeowners different solutions, such as a menu of options like we have at Zoodealio. But the beauty of it is how they're providing solutions and attracting clients at a very big scale from Avenue 1, 2, and 3. And all of them have their place in the market, therefore funneling in and having massive lead growth because of the different options that they were providing.
Sounds like a good strategy.
Sounds familiar.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have any, I have some ones, I'll throw out a couple of ones I think that we're going to continue to see. So due to some of I'm glad that we've had some job growth, but I mean, let's face it, we're having some harder economic times. I know, I saw something a couple of days ago that back due car payments are like up like, I don't remember what, I think it was like 15-20%. There's just continuing to be stress on people not being able to pay. So I think that finding those notice of defaults, people that are back due on payments, whether it be list pendants, notice of foreclosure, that is still going to be that strategy because you have so many people that actually have massive amount of equity and they're going to write it as long as they can to get the free payment, even though when they sell the house foreclosure, yes, if they have that much equity, they would get the money returned to them. But we got to remember, foreclosure is super expensive and interest is paid in arrears. So the longer that they stay in that house for free, quote unquote, it's not for free. They're actually, if their mortgage payment is $2,000, by the time it's all shaking out, they're probably almost paying double that for that time.
Good news is there are not many people in foreclosure right now. So that's the good news. And I say work smarter, not harder. Focus your activities and your efforts on the people that are moving. And what we can learn from the 2023 National Association of Realtors Home Buyer and Trends report is that the largest cohort of sellers and buyers right now are baby boomers. And so they're moving. They're not only moving, but they're moving far away from the home that they're selling.
Good one.
And so I think that if you are really looking to capitalize on more listing inventory, you need to start thinking about that demographic and how you can really serve serve and support them in their changing life stage, right? 21% of them are moving to be closer to family and friends per the NAR Home Buyer and Seller Trends Report. So lean into the data and use that data to really educate and inform yourself, and then also guide your marketing efforts. So, maybe blog posts, videos on what it's like to downsize, what it's like to, be a baby boomer and entering in this next phase of your life. And, maybe letting your whole sphere and everybody you work with know that you have an expansive agent referral network so that you can refer them to an agent in another market. Because if they're moving, on average, the younger boomers are moving 150 miles away from the home that they sold. Guess what? That's not going to be in your market. And so you want to make sure that they know that you can refer them to a great agent in the market that they're going to, so you can capitalize on that referral business too. So it's still a lot of business happening. It's not doom and gloom out there. Transaction count is a little bit lower, but I think that there's still a lot happening. Yeah,
absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely. I just think that people are coming and looking for different solutions. So to your point, from a marketing standpoint, by getting, now's the time I think you double down on some of the marketing effort, right? By keeping that value proposition in front of them on how you can solve the problem they're potentially going to have. Because here's the thing, I think where some people may be losing some business is those boomers, for example. A lot of times they'll start the search where they're going to move to, and then it'll get reverse engineered. They'll meet an agent there and, hey, I know an agent in Phoenix. Let me refer an agent back to you. So they're getting that deal. Now they're getting the referral as well, versus you being the local expert and referring out, right? So there's a lost opportunity sometimes by not keeping your value proposition in front of them, and where sometimes people start the move by identifying the property first, then they focus on the sell second.
I agree. Yeah, Good insights. A lot of great insights today, I think. So, hey, thanks so much for listening. We definitely appreciate you and your viewership or listenership. So if there's anything...
You/listenership.
You could be listening, you could be watching, but either way, we're grateful for you. You keep us going. If there's anything you'd like us to unpack or digest, just drop us a line. And if you're on YouTube, ring the bell so you get notifications for every new episode.
Yep. Thanks so much. Catch you on the next one.